Welcome, ladies and gents. This is one of those incredibly comical kind of situations. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness went over its budget, its reported and predicted budget, by nearly $100 million. Now, this was a success story by all accounts for Marvel's Phase 4. It was one of those movies that nearly grossed $1 billion. It was $955.8 million worldwide. You'd look at that and you'd go, wow, yeah, great, that's epic. That's making some serious bank, isn't it? It's not, no. In fact, actually, without a tax rebate from the UK, this movie wouldn't have made any money. In fact, it's that tax rebate that basically made it money. About $50 million, give or take. And this puts it into perspective why the MCU is a failure now. Absolutely a failure. These budgets are insane. It's just extortionately high amounts of money. Extortionately high. So let's take a look. This isn't just some sort of backwater digger finding that it had, gone over the budget. Forbes had done a bunch of digging and has now figured out that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness actually cost $94.5 million more to produce than the original $200 million budget estimate. Right? So, that would have put it at $300 million, well, roughly $350 million to make. Right? Roughly. Now, it had a $54 million reimbursement, like I said, from courtesy of my tax, UK government tax breaks. So the budget came in at $300 million. $300 million. Now, when you're looking at these things and you're doing like conservative estimates of marketing, because this is just the production budget. Just the production budget. When you're looking at these things, a conservative estimate will be about 50% of the production budget. So $150 million. So 300 plus 150, $450 million. All in before it's released. Right? 450 million, nearly $500 million, which is, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. But here's where the comical part comes in. Because it costs, again, conservatively, I'm being generous with the marketing budget. This thing was everywhere. It was absolutely everywhere. So $150 million is way underestimated. But $450 million, it needs to make double that to start breaking even. Now, why? Because worldwide, you average theatre cuts, because everyone seems to leave this out when they do their mathematics. Theatre cuts, you average it worldwide to be 50%. Why? Because different markets do take different things. And China, for instance, takes like 70% of the theatre cuts. And, Disney will only see about 30% of that. Generously. But, that's China for you, right? So $450 million, double that. $900 million it needs to start breaking even. And then you figure out that it took $955 million. So it only made $55 million. But only because it had a reimbursement from the government did it make money. Because if you then add that onto it, if it didn't have that 955, it's embarrassingly so. It is absolutely embarrassing. And they're wrong here anyway. They're like, it still turned 183.4 million profit from the theatrical revenue, a sum which is obviously narrowed since this news came out. Yeah, 55 million. It estimated it did $55.8 million it took. Now look, I'd be happy with a $55.8 million payday. Anyone wants to pay me $50 million? I'm all in. I'll do that. But for this kind of film that costs $450, that's a joke. So yeah, the MCU might be, the biggest grossing franchise of all time. But what does that matter when your shareholders are getting none of that? And you're seeing none of that. Staggeringly high budgets. Now it's fascinating because, and again, I've been really conservative. This had a lot of COVID halts. Now that added, you can look this up, it added roughly 25% to budgets because they had to, it slowed everything down, it stopped stuff, there were new procedures in place, there was testing in place. So COVID, it was rumoured at the time, it added an additional roughly 25% to a budget. And I haven't even factored that into this. But what was it that really did it, ladies and gents? It was those MCU reshoots at the last minute. They changed entire sequences. Lots of cameos were filmed multiple times. Because, why? They didn't have a plan for where they were going with the multiverse saga. Key creatives involved with the movie hadn't seen WandaVision. And there were no references to Loki. So it was just all over the place. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know what they were going to be doing. So they did extensive reshoots at the last minute, just like they did with Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Last minute extensive reshoots. Awful. Now apparently, there's some really bad rumours about Deadpool 3 as well. And this is the movie that everyone thinks is going to save the MCU. We covered this on my podcast last night, and it will be sectioned out as its own video. I don't think it's going to do very well. I don't think it's going to do very well at all. But look, this is the MCU all over. Exuberant budgets, tiny profits, and I guess, realistically, they're hinging on merchandise. Bizarre. What a bizarre business model. But yeah, ladies and gents, thanks to me, a UK taxpayer, Doctor Strange made money. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Love it. And without that tax break, it wouldn't have made any money. What do you guys think? I'd be genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. Love to hear your thoughts and love to have you here more often. Give the video a like and a share. Get this news out there, ladies and gents. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the MCU. The budgets are insane. Anyway, cheers guys. You have a great day. Take care now.